Hey, what's up, guys? It's me, John the House Guy, here with my lovely co-host,
Kim the Home Girl.
and today we're going to talk about the 10 worst problems that you can find on your home inspection.
You're listening to the House Guy and Home Girl podcast, a podcast about real estate and real life. As realtors, home builders, and real estate investors, John and Kim keep it real. Former teachers turned real estate professionals, they have a heart for helping others. Join them each week as they discuss all things home. And now, here's your hosts, John and Kim.
So, Kim, what's been going on with you this week?
You're starting with me.
We always do.
Yeah. Let's see. It's pretty much the first of summer, so that's really cool. Nora, I've got to take her to the pool before. She literally asks me every day.
Multiple times.
And it just opened, I believe, Monday. So, trying to get things together for a yard sale, trying to kind of freshen up our flower bed. Just trying to keep my head above water. How about you?
Got back from the the little boys trip.
Yeah.
Emmett and his buddies went to Gatlinburg for the past weekend there, a few days. Went and had a good time up there. Went to Dollywood. Got to see the Dollywood stuff, the mountain.
Spend a lot of money.
Yeah, drop some cash in the
Gatlinburg, y'all. If y'all want to spend some money, go to Gatlinburg.
That's right. It's like money pit.
It is a money pit. Yeah.
We had a good time though. Emmett had a good time with his buddies, and then come back and now hit the ground running. They got the framing completed back there on the house, and we've been kind of checking on that day by day. And so they texted me today and said, "Hey, we're ready for you to do the walkthrough." So we're going to go back there and do that here shortly. And
so they're done.
Said they're done.
Okay, well, let's wrap this up because I'm excited.
Get back there and see it. Okay.
Yeah, because I've got some changes like that I made yesterday that's got to be done.
That maybe it got incorporated.
It may need more than one person, so
gotcha.
I don't want them to leave.
So fast forward to when the house is complete. That gives us a good segue. The house is complete. We got a buyer. They have a home inspection, right? None of these problems are going to be on our houses that we build. But let's say we're dealing with a client, and we've got the 10 worst problems you could have on a home inspection. So we'll just take this list and
let me just go ahead and just put my 2 cents in as a real estate agent. Y'all don't waive the home inspection on a contract. 2 years ago when homes were literally flying off the shelf, people were just waiving the home inspection just to be able to get the house that they wanted. And there's so many things that the naked eye or an untrained eye can't detect or see. And so that's where a good home inspector comes in and will just comb over everything. And so when you do that, you get a good report, and here are the 10 things that a home inspector may find. And these are the alarming things. And usually if you have a really good home inspector, when you get the report, these things are in red. They're usually color coded with his findings are color coded usually, and I don't know, like red.
I think
green.
there's a what do you call that? Like a protocol or whatever for the National Association of Home Inspectors that gives you blue, orange, and red.
Okay.
So blue is like maintenance items, orange is like caution items, and red is like danger items. That's the reports that we see here in our local market.
And that's where I go when a client shares a home inspection with us. I look for those reds. Not to say that I'm not looking at the greens and all the other things, but I really want to make sure, like, what are the big things that have to be done?
Safety issues.
Yeah. And then here are the worst things that you can find. Number one, I would say foundation issues, cracks in the foundation, deep settling where the house is, maybe off some, where it's caused the floor to shift, especially if it's tile or hardwood, you see that shift. And those things, sometimes they need to be fixed. I mean,
these are...
Some, settling of every house settles. And the older the house is, the more settling that occurs. And some of it's just naturally... you've been in an old house and you kind of like, oh, I'm a little bit dizzy, when you walk down the hall because the floor is, not level and things like that. But some settling, I mean, that's normal, natural, but some settling of foundation and major cracks, you need to get fixed.
So I tell people this, the house, if you go in a house that was built in the 1920s, and okay, that foundation is probably okay because it's been standing here for 100 years, right? Like this is, you may have some issues there. What you want to look for really is cracks in the tile, like you mentioned, right? That's going to tell you, hey, something's going on here. Cracks in the exterior brick. And what I've always been told too is if you look at cracks in the exterior brick, if they're following the mortar joint, that's not as bad as if they crack in the middle of a brick.
Right. And it usually is a mortar joint crack if you see.
It follows that, and that's reparable. You can fix that.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's move on.
But even with that, you need to get somebody that.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? That's what an inspection is going to tell you. Every inspector is going to say, please contact a highly qualified foundation specialist to evaluate this further. They're just going to look at it and go, you might want to check this out. Right. That's what they're doing. They're showing you everything. They're going through a structured, detailed list to say, get somebody to look at this, or.
That reminds me of the house that we bought and rehabbed and flipped it. Crescent. Do you remember that one? Did we ever do? I remember we had that exterior brick.
Yeah, we had to have part of the foundation rebuilt on that.
So they just.
So they didn't do that. Now you see the commercials where they put that and raise the house up. What we had to do is we just dug out a big section of the outside of the house, and whoever had built that foundation when they did it, they just haphazardly threw some stone and some stuff in there, and it failed, of course, right? It wasn't even concrete. In that one little section, for whatever reason, like we saw where the concrete stopped and we saw where it stopped on the other side. And so what we had to do is just dig that out, take all that bad stuff out, and then put a jack under it and then concrete that all back in, rebuild that footer. But definitely an expensive problem that we didn't account for, right?
Right. Yeah.
Second on the list, roof problems. If you have any kind of roof problems, you really want to make sure that you get that checked out. You could have missing shingles. You could have leaks in the roof. You could have a typical place to look for those leaks is around those flange pipes that come out for your ventilation, for your plumbing. A lot of times those will get dry rotted and fail. A good inspector is going to get up there on the roof. They're going to walk it. They're going to say, it's had hail damage, or it's had this kind of problem, or this, that, or the other. And as they're looking at it, again, they're going to tell you, get a qualified roofer to check this out, because the roof is what keeps the entire home dry. So you want to make sure that that is in good working order.
And you want to find out the roof's age too. When was it replaced and things like that, because that can kind of help you gauge. Like,
yeah, that's a good point, because it could, typically a roof will last, they say 30, they say 30 years, but really and truly, by the time you get to 15 years on a roof, especially in our area, you're going to have some storm damage, and you're probably going to get the roof replaced by your insurance. So that being said, the roof is and all these items on this list are what, we consider you make sure you get these are in good condition, because they're expensive to repair. So you want to make sure that you're checking all these things, and your inspector's looking at them because they're expensive.
Well, and also if this is an investment property that you're looking at, or a potential rental in property, or a flip house that you want to take it and flip it out and make a profit on, like, these are the big things that can really break your budget.
Yeah, so it's going to, and if you may say, I know about all these things. It's going to cost you money. If you're willing to deal with those problems, that's how you make your money. Right. All right.
And the next thing, plumbing issues. And this goes back to like leaking faucets, leaking plumbing, the type of plumbing material that they used, back in the 40s and 50s, they used that, galvanized
so
piping.
Galvanized plumbing, lead plumbing.
Yeah, lead plumbing and all that. And all that is very expensive to replace. And so make sure that, your findings that you find with a home inspector when they look at the plumbing, if you have issues with the plumbing, that may be something that you negotiate with the sellers to fix or look at or whatnot.
Oh, yeah, if it's something that's going to, if you don't account for the cost, you may just want to walk away. Plumbing can be...
can cause water damage.
Water problems.
Yes.
Drain problems. Water flow problems with that galvanized plumbing. The problem with it is it corrodes on the inside,
right,
and rust, and then you're drinking. If you ever see those pipes, you look at them and it's like rust on the inside, and you're drinking that water, or you're using that to cook with or whatever. It's really gross. So,
and something that we encountered too, plumbing that was so old that came from the road, the city water valve to the house. What was the issue there? The pipes were so old that they couldn't get enough pressure into the house.
Yeah, it was just that same deal, right? They were just
galvanized,
corroded.
They were corroded.
Yeah.
And the city, the city doesn't pay for, so they only
get it
cover,
to the meter, and from the meter to the house is your responsibility.
Right. And so like that was on us to fix. And this particular house had a pool, and so we needed to pump a lot of water to fill a pool up, and it was just so. Needless to say, those pipes were replaced, and that was a pretty expensive.
Yeah, it can be a hefty, bill for sure if you're going to have to do that. But we did it, and we were okay on it. But you just got to know to look for those things and know what to expect. Number 4, electrical problems, right? A lot of people, a lot of the red items that we see on these home inspections are electrical problems because electricity can kill you, right? So you want to make sure that you're handling those electrical problems very, very specifically. So you're going to have to hire an electrician, and because electricity is dangerous, electricians cost a lot of money. So what you're going to want to look at here is what is the wiring system? Is it go to the breaker box and see if it's breakers or if it's still on fuses. A lot of times insurance won't cover you if you're on fuses, so you won't be able to get insurance on the property until you change that out.
Sometimes you can't even get the power turned on to the house if it ever gets turned off, and if it's on fuses.
If it's off for a long period of time, sometimes you have to get it inspected and bring it up to code. We dealt with that recently on a rental property where we had damage to a house. They had to take the power off the house from the weatherhead. And then the city said, well, we have to inspect it if we disconnect it and reconnect it. So we had to bring some things up to code in there. And no problem, we did that, but it's just something you have to consider. On your electrical problems, too, you want to think about, is it on 2-wire or is it grounded, right? So the old system was 2-wire where you have the plug and no bottom prong. You may need to update that. Any of that is going to cost money.
That's huge, and that's such a safety issue. I mean, because, you can, like he said, like electricity will kill you. Like these things have killed multiple people in the past, just grounding wire and not having a GFCI outlet and things like that. And like we've seen all that. I grew up with fuses, if a fuse would blow or whatever, like we'd go in there and like unscrew it and then screw in another one or whatever. But we've purchased homes like that and we've seen all that. So that stuff is real. And then sometimes for whatever reason, I don't know if like updates had occurred or the builder or whatnot, but we'll see some crazy wiring issues. That's like, like if a kid or a pet or anybody came around, they're going to get electrocuted because there's just an open wire that's being, that's transporting wire. And you know what's funny though? Like, and I know you've seen this too, but recently we went to Disney. And most everybody goes and watches or sits and watches the Carousel of Progress.
Oh, the Carousel of Progress, yeah.
And in that, I think it's the second, the second little set or whatever. Like all these wires are like
exposed.
Right, running and exposed. We've seen some of that, y'all. And that can be dangerous. Like we live in a day and an age where wires should be underground and covered within conduit and piping and all that. And if you don't have that, you need to get it fixed. So that's where a good home inspector comes in and will see these red flags and warning signs, and you got to address it. Okay. So also too, if this showed up on your home inspection and this is a potential investment property, whether you're renting it out or you're going to rehab it and flip it, you need to address these safety issues because, these issues are going to come back up and you need to fix them on the front end. So, which brings me to my next point. Another problem would be HVAC. This is a huge thing because we need air conditioning to live pretty much. Like this day and age,
we're accustomed to it.
We don't have, the door, the galley, where people back in the day, it was just a hallway and that was the air.
The breezeway through the house.
Right. I mean, we really depend on heating and air, and that's not to say that you have to have heating and air, but most homes do have the heating and air.
Oh yeah, I think in where we live for sure, and in this day and age, an HVAC system, or at least window units is a must. Right. It's impossible.
But make sure that the home inspector, make sure he checks it inside and out for leaks, for,
so what they're going to do when an inspector does this, they're going to go in the house, they're going to turn the air on.
Right.
Right. They've got their thermometer. They're going to hold it up to the vent.
And they're going to turn it to the coldest cold and the hottest hot.
That's right. And then check and see if there's supposed to be 20 degrees of temperature difference. Right. And they're going to tell you, it was this much outside. We should have been able to get to this. We were able to, or we weren't. You need to get this checked out by an HVAC guy.
Right.
And those can be expensive.
Times we face something needs to be cleaned out, or it needs to have Freon, or the drip pan is full, or there's so many ins and outs of an HVAC unit, and those things can be upwards of $10,000 to replace.
Oh yeah, you can spend unlimited amounts on that.
And that's for one unit. So you really want to make sure that you get that inspected, and also too, if it's not running properly, I run into that a lot too, where it's not been serviced throughout the years, and so it just runs and runs, and it's cost, the homeowner has been out of pocket way more money than they should have, because their electricity bill is higher because their unit is running.
Yeah, it's one of those things, just like the roof. You want to know the age of the unit,
right,
so you can say, okay, well, this is a 15-year-old unit. It's probably getting near the end of its life.
Right.
Plan to replace it, or don't, but know that you're kind of walking on
and
the
then
edge.
Not a funny story, but just to good looking out. Showed a house this weekend, and it was a potential investment property. We look at it, it had been updated, the floors are all nice and shiny, and walk through it, it's all clean and new paint and this and that, and they've closed in the garage and put in a window unit in the garage, and it's could be a extra bedroom. And we start looking, and of course because I had to call you.
I was in Dollywood, when you called.
There's no unit outside.
It has the vents, it has the ductwork.
Yes,
but
there's
no AC unit.
Yeah, there's the ductwork. It's all there. And turned out there was no HVAC. There was no air conditioning per se, but it was all furnace heat. And so called about it with the other agent, and then I was told that from the other renters that had been in the house previously that one window unit was enough to cool the entire house.
Yeah.
So, anyways, take that at what it's worth.
Lies.
But, make sure though, you want to check and make sure that unit is outside on a concrete pad somewhere. You want to lay eyes on that unit, or so that's
make sure it runs. And an inspection would have found that too.
Right. But now, is that a deal breaker? Absolutely not. Those houses.
If you plan for it, and it's an investor client, right? So there's the other part. It's an investor who knows, hey, this is what it's going to cost. All right, let's go to the next one. Number 6, pest infestation. Right now, that could be a lot of different things. That could be rodents. That could be bugs and roaches. Fleas, termites. Right, termites are the big one because they do the most damage. Yeah, spiders. But any of that stuff. For this one, I know if you're going to live there, it's a deal breaker. Right. We're not living there.
Right.
Burn it down.
And then termites, like you said, that's the biggie for that. That's, you want to make sure to get. We actually have an individual inspection outside of the home inspection. We do a home.
Oh yeah, just a pest report, right? That tells you if there's any damage.
In order
that
to
only
close,
goes so far, right? So if you have termite damage, that's something to kind of be aware of. If they come back and say there's damage, but we can't see how far it went, well, the only way to know is to take the sheetrock off the walls, right, or the finish off the walls. That's the only way to know how far it went. So take that at your own risk, basically, right? If it, and a lot of times,
but you got to have a termite letter, that's the big.
And you can tell for the most of the time you can tell, but if they come back and say, oh, you've got active termites, then that's a totally different thing. Those have to be treated before we can close, get the property under, that's part of the contract. If it's included in your contract anyway, that has to be treated before it will close. So
right. And if a house has been sitting for, any time without anybody there, more than likely it does have
Oh yeah, I mean that's just if you don't have any kind of remediation or prevention for that, then it's almost, assured.
I mean, we have y'all back in the day. I mean, I used to keep bug spray in my car. That's so gross to even think about it, but like that's real. Absolutely 100%. Like I used to keep spray on bug spray, not the aerosol thing, because we would go in so many homes that used to be rental properties that would have pets, and then they would leave, and when they leave and they take their pets,
I know what you're saying now.
Fleas are there.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's what's going on. And then one particular house that we, it was kind of gutted, but the subfloor was out, and you could see to the bottom. You could see the foundation, and it was dirt. And it was a little damp in there, and nobody had lived there, no air conditioning running and things like that. And there were chiggers everywhere. And so, like, at 2:00 in the afternoon, if you didn't go before 2:00 in the afternoon, you ain't going in this house without getting bit and eat up. So yeah, pests can be a problem.
You had to remediate that. It costs money to remediate.
Right. You got to get a bug specialist in there. I mean, we had several treatments in that. In a couple of houses, we've had several treatments, and it always works. So, and to this day, in my new house, and I will continue to have this service, but I pay for a monthly pest service. Period. Like that is, if you're Kim Wright, like that's part of my monthly. I ain't getting rid of that.
Cost of living.
That's right. And they keep going up, and I'm like, I'm gonna keep paying it. So, anyways, the next issue that you can find is mold and mildew, y'all. This is if mold and mildew comes up on a home inspection, you want to further get it investigated. I would, just because it can be a serious health issue, and you want to get it inspected by a specialist. They're depending on where it is, how much it is. I mean, some of it, a
lot of times you can treat it with bleach and it'll be gone. But if it's a serious one that will cause health problems, definitely want to know that. And most of the time, mold, mildew, those are indicative of a water problem, some kind of water intrusion problem that you're having, or bad ventilation in the bathroom or something like that. And either way, you can't live there with that.
Right. Which brings up water damage.
That's when you get that musty smell, like in a basement for sure. You'll have those problems. So you always want to make sure you check for that. And that's number 8 is water damage. We want to look for leaks, right? And I always tell people this: you forget to look at the ceiling. A lot of times people forget to look at the ceiling when they go in and look at a house, and a lot of times that'll go back to number 2, a roof problem, where you have a leak, and a leak causes a water problem, and the water problem causes mold and mildew. So number 8, water damage. Want to check everywhere for any kind of leaks. Look around the bottom of the windows. Look around doors, at the bottom of the threshold of doors where water may be intruding. If there's any kind of signs of
outside, the drainage of the water, if the water is not getting away from the house.
So you just want to make sure that water is moving away from the house like it should, and not causing any.
Yeah, water is like, whew. I mean, we all need water, to live, but it can be a hazard. I mean, it can wreak havoc on a house,
right?
And the foundation and all the things of a house, and also environmental hazards. You want to make sure to address those things: radon, asbestos, lead-based paint. Just any kind of hazard that may cause serious health issues. You can't have lead-based paint. You have to disclose that if a house is built before 1978.
You got it. Good.
You have to give them a pamphlet saying that, this is a
lead-based paint disclosure.
Right. That it was used, lead-based paint used to be used back then, because that'll kill people too, a lot of times, because lead-based paint is.
I don't know a whole lot about it. I know that
it's
people used to eat paint chips. I think kids did or something.
It's got like
it would
a
flake off.
Sweet taste, and so they would eat it, and then of course the hard metal in their body would give them hard metal poisoning, and it would lead to death. So you have to disclose that. I mean, that's law.
Any house built prior to 1978 requires lead-based paint disclosure, which makes the seller tell, hey, I know that lead-based paint exists, or I don't have any records of this, or we had this remediated already, whatever.
And that's not a big deal. I mean, don't be scared of that. Radon testing is an optional test that can be set up. It's just a little gadget thing that you don't disturb it. And
radon is like an odorless, tasteless gas, right, that causes as a carcinogen or something. I think I'm not a scientist. You're more of a scientist than I am, but I don't know.
I know this area. It deals with the soil. Radon is in the soil,
and it leaches into your
home over time, and it deals. And it also, like, radon is at higher levels in different areas, and so, like, we kind of live in an area in Muscle Shoals, in the Shoals area, we have a higher level of radon. And I don't know what it's measured in.
They say, I don't know either, micrograms or something. I don't know, but they say closer to the water that you get, the worse. We always tell people to get a radon test if they want to have one done.
And like a home inspector, he has the tools. Usually,
he can do that. It's usually an add-on, right? It's usually, I think, about $150 extra.
And you can see.
And they put a little filter in the house, and it sits there for 48 hours. Then they come back and read it, and they'll tell you.
And we've done that before too.
Yeah, and a lot of clients do that, and they want to do that for peace of mind.
Right.
You'd have to live there for a long time, I think, for it to affect you. But I'm not a scientist or a radon specialist.
But speaking about, environmental hazards, it brings me to the, you get the fire alarm, but you can also get a carbon monoxide alarm after you,
especially if you have any kind of gas appliance or a gas fireplace, you need a CO2 monitor in the house. And that's a code. That's a code requirement.
Right. But that's something that people have passed away from fatally, died in their sleep. It's, it's a silent killer or whatnot. And then asbestos. Asbestos is something that we don't really deal with a lot because
in older homes.
But in older homes and I'm not
insulation, tile, wall, floor tiles, and insulation.
Right. And a home inspector will know, what. Usually he can tell, where the asbestos is. And too, like you said, floor tile, I think it's like.
I've been told the old floor tiles are 8 inches by 8 inches.
Right. And we were there was a house over.
Yeah, we were looking at it as a possible flip, and then we found that out, and it was like, I'm not disturbing it. Because, it's not a problem until you disturb it. Asbestos siding on the outside of a home, you can do the same thing. But it's one of those things like radon or whatever, it can get in your lungs and cause
when
problems.
You disturb it and those chemicals start going up in the air, and then you're breathing in those little particles of asbestos, and then they settle.
And then how you dispose of it too is another issue. You can't just throw it in the dumpster or whatever. You have to kind of take it and remediate that in a way. Number 10, final one, structural problems. So any kind of structural problem, you're going to want to make sure that you know what you're getting into there. So you want to look for, we talked about earlier with foundations, sagging floors. You want to look for bowed walls. You want to look for any kind of, obviously, holes in the roof or holes in the side of the wall or anything like that. Any kind of structural issue.
Yeah, and sometimes you want to move those pictures. You know what I mean? Like, what's behind this? Because things get, they get concealed. And then when you close on a home, then you're like, oh, I didn't realize that hole or whatever was back there. But anyways, but more structural though.
Yeah, structural problems is something that's going to cause the house to fail, right? And people are required to disclose that. When they list their home, they're supposed to tell you if there's a structural problem that they know about. And they may not know about it, but a home inspector is going to come in and go, oh, hey, this wall is, sagging here, or there's a bow in this wall, or something's not going on right here that needs to. The roof is sagging, that needs more support. The floor maybe needs a joist or something underneath it. Whatever it is, all those issues are going to be pricey to complete and fix.
Right. And let me just say also that, if you're in the market and you're trying to shop and find an FHA loan to fund your house, FHA loan will not, they're gonna make sure that certain things are fixed.
Any of those government loans, FHA, USDA, VA, they're all going to have a certain list of...
You got to have broken windows fixed, broken tiles fixed, foundation issues fixed, all the major HVAC. They're not going to fund your loan unless these things are fixed.
Yeah, they're going to ensure that all that is taken care of, right, for sure. So real quick, let's just kind of rehash the list. We got 1 through 10. I'm just going to knock these out. 1, foundation issues. 2, roof problems. 3, plumbing issues. 4, electrical problems. 5, HVAC system. 6, pest infestations. 7, mold and mildew. 8, water damage. 9, environmental hazards. 10, structural issues. All those things are the 10 worst things you can find on a home inspection report. When you get those back, if you have those problems, you really want to get those evaluated by a professional so that you can tell, hey, what is this going to cost me going in, or should I just walk away from this deal? And a good real estate agent is going to have a list of inspectors they can share with you, local to your area, and also people that they trust to make the right decisions and get you connected to the right people to help you decide, should you walk away or should you get that problem fixed?
Yeah, they're going to help you and counsel you through this. That's part of their job too, is the findings in a home inspection. So, and all these findings, yes, some of them and most of them are alarming, but they're fixable and they should be fixed. And some should be fixed by the seller.
Yeah, and it's up to you to decide if you want to move forward or not, right? Because you have an inspection. As long as you have an inspection contingency in your contract, and then you can walk away from any of these problems. And you're going to want to make sure that you have a qualified person look at all that stuff and then make the best decision for you and your family, regardless, right? And there's nothing to lose there as long as your contract is ironclad. So.
Sounds good.
That being said, thank you guys for listening. We appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the show. Leave us a review at the bottom or a comment below, and we'll see you next time.
See y'all.
Thanks for listening to the House Guy and Home Girl podcast, your number one source for all things home. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and check out our YouTube page for video content from the show.